Good evening, dear listeners. This is Akashvani Kohima, and you're tuned in to another exciting episode on Literary Program, your space for stories, voices, and the people behind the book. Joining me in the studio is Mr. Runshito Lims, a poet, author whose work beautifully captures the identity and heritage through storytelling. Mr. Runshito Lims has also published 2 poetry collections, Allegories of Life, a collection of haikus and other poems in the year 2019, and Kindling Passion in 2023. Beyond literature, Runshito has a deep appreciation for traditional Naga shawls, and he often shares his love for these traditional treasures on social media platforms, hence earning the right to his nickname, the Shawl Guy. Mr. Runshito Lims, we are thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we start the interview, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Runshito Lims. I am a poet and author, and I currently serve as an assistant professor of literature at Elder College, Kohima.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Let's go back to the beginning. How and when did your journey as a writer first begin?
So when I talk about my journey as a writer, it goes back to my college days. I remember writing since, my second years, which was 2017. So I've been writing since then. But all this time I was writing poetry. Sometimes I would write plays and dramas for my college. That is how I started my journey as a writer. And it was just a few years back when I started having keen interest for storytelling and listening stories. So I started collecting stories and I wanted people to kindle the art of listening. So my recent book, The Ancestral Voices, it's all about those collection of stories. So my journey started from 2017 and hopefully I hope it will go on.
That's such a beautiful beginning, and every writer's journey is special in their own way, and so is yours. So thank you for sharing that with us. What inspired you to write The Ancestral Voices, and when did you first have the idea for it?
Okay, so here's the fun part about my life. I belong to the Imchen community, but my mother is an Angami. So my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, I grew up with my maternal grandfather and grandmother. And the cute thing about this is that my grandmother again, my maternal grandmother is a Imchen again. So my maternal grandfather, who is an Angami by origin, he was posted in Hukir when he was very young as a Kelu Babu, we call it, or Keti Babu. So my grandfather taught the Imchen people of Hukir and Kyosor area the art of terrace cultivation. So when he was posted there, maybe he was a very good listener, I believe. So he collected so many stories from the locals and he kept all these stories to himself. And as I grew up in Kohima with my grandparents, every evening he would narrate all these stories to me one by one. So I was so interested into all these stories. I was fascinated by the stories, in fact. So as I grew up, I got the opportunities to travel around, go to villages, visit people, meet new faces. So whenever I do that, I often try to cross-check my stories which my grandfather narrated, because not trying to be suspicious, but a Imchen story coming from an Angami guy, how authentic can that be, right? So I wanted to just cross-check my stories. So I would go around the villages asking them if the stories are true. And to my surprise, like all those stories that my grandfather narrated were true. And last year, it was in Pungro when we were having the Tsangamnyo festival. My friend Rebecca, she's now an assistant professor at Mangkolemba Government College. She and I, we were sitting by the fireplace and we were discussing about my interest for storytelling. And she did mention about Ranj. I think somebody should come up with a book of these folktales and folklores of our community so that, that students can also get a glimpse of how the stories were and how we came about, all these stories. That was the spark to this book, to be honest. So what inspired me to write The Ancestral Voices was my love for storytelling and my grandfather's way of storytelling. The spark that brought up this book was the conversation that I had with my friend Rebecca. So, yeah.
That is such a beautiful story. And the fact that you carried this story and you brought it to life, shout out to your friend and to your grandfather for this. Moving on to the next question, could you tell us more about your book, The Ancestral Voices, and what is the central theme behind it?
The central theme behind The Ancestral Voices is sheer storytelling, to be honest. It's a collection of folklore from the Imchen community. The good thing about this book is that the stories, though I have said that these stories are a collection of folktales from Imchen community, but trust me, the folktales are not just confined to the Imchen community. There are folktales, there are stories in the book, which I'm sure you will find it even in other community. For example, there is one story which I wrote about. We call it the Mukilabera. Even the Sangtams have it in their own version. They call it Nitsarila. For example, the Changs, they call it Aulimla. The Aus, they call it Onglimla. And my grandfather, he narrated the same story in an Angami way, and he said it's Miwinyo or Magwinyo in some accents. So the central theme behind the book is I wanted people to see beauty in diversity. Though the stories can be of different dialect, though the stories come from different places, the root remains the same. That is something that I found in so many of the stories. And the book is all about storytelling. It's all about how I try to pass down the stories that I collected through my grandfathers and through people around. So there was an incident where students from Patkai College would come up to Kohima just to get some stories from me for their dissertations. And this was not just one, but 2-3 students. They've already approached me. And one day I felt so bura to be honest. Because when we talk about storytelling, when we talk about getting this kind of information, we usually go to those matured ones, all the bura kan, right? So, and back then I was just 27. When they came up to me, to a 27-year-old guy, to collect all these ancient stories, I felt so old. And I felt so bad in one way. Like, come on, we don't have any storytellers. That is what I questioned. And honestly, we don't have storytellers now. If you go to villages, we barely have a handful of storytellers, and I doubt if I should even trust those sources, because when you go to not just my community, in fact every community, if you go to those old people, if you ask them to narrate stories, they talk about their glory, like mui mathai man luise, mui inya thagise. When you ask the same story to someone else, misa se taidum bachadamne dawi duri sanaisi, we come across this kind of stories. So the sources are not authentic anymore. In fact, I always quote this wherever I go, that the art of storytelling is dying. So my book is a small attempt to rekindle the art of storytelling. So that is what Ancestral Voices is all about.
That's so beautiful. I think you've truly captured the art of storytelling. Now we're really excited to dive in deeper into the soul of the book. So what was the most challenging part of putting this book together? And have you experienced any writer's block? And when it strikes, how do you work through it?
The most challenging part of putting this book together, honestly, was the time when I lost my phone, actually. I was traveling and I was going to Tinpati area and I lost my phone like that. And I could not find my phone. And all the write-ups, I write on my phone. I type everything on my phone.
I see.
I don't do laptop thing. I don't write on paper, pen. I don't do that. I do on my phone. So I lost my phone. And that was the most challenging part of retrieving my phone. I could not get my phone back. Luckily, I bought another phone and I could back up all my data. And another challenging part was I lost that phone too. In just 2 months, I lost 2 phones. And that was the most challenging part. I almost broke down and I almost gave up on this book. But something kept pushing me. I think that was my passion of writing. And I finally got myself another phone and finally retrieved all the documents. Had to work from the scratch on some part. That was the most challenging part for me. And when we talk about a writer's block, I go through that a lot. I experience that a lot. But with time, I think I have found my own cheat code to overcoming my writer's block. Believe it or not, when I experience writer's block, what I do, I used to watch anime before to overcome that. Now, I think I'm becoming old, so I don't do anime much. But when I experience writer's block, what I do, I sleep. I know it sounds so silly, but I sleep. And when I wake up, I'm out of my writer's block zone. So I sleep when I experience writer's block now. Yeah, so that's what I do.
I think it's really interesting how different authors have different way of coping with writer's block. And I'm sure that many aspiring writers who are listening right now can relate to that. And now we want to dive in deeper into the world of the Ancestral Voices. So do you have any personal story from your collection? And if so, we would love to hear it.
Honestly, all the stories in the Ancestral Voices are my favorite. I love each and every story. I think it'll be so hard for me to pick one favorite story. But if I were to pick at all, it will be the first story of the Ancestral Voices. And it's the tiger spirit. There is this meme thing going on where, Imchens are associated with Imchen, the tiger. So there is a story behind it. And I wanted to put it first in the book. So it's about grandfather Shanu. It starts from there where, once upon a time he was, in the middle of the night, he was awake because so many dogs were barking in the middle of the night. And he went out to check why the dogs were barking so loudly in the middle of the night. And to his astonishment, he saw that a tigress had given birth to a cub just by the house area in the village. So it's very unusual for a tigress to come inside the village and give birth like that. So when he saw that the tigress had given birth to a cub, he gently went and wrapped the cub in an aram kim. We call it the aram kim. It's a black shawl with cowrie beads. So he wrapped that in an aram kim and he announced the entire village in the middle of the night, don't come out of your houses, there's a tigress who had given birth like that. And he gently picked up the cub and walked towards the village gate. The tigress slowly followed and slowly left the village gate, and he took the cub towards the jungle area. He left it there and in a safer place so that even the villagers will not be attacked by the tigress, something like that. So he took the cub like that towards the jungle area, left it there, and he would go and check the cub if it's doing well. And on the 6th day, only the cloth was remaining, the aram kim, only the shawl was remaining. The cub was gone. So which means the tigress had left along with the cub. Maybe this is also the reason why we Yimkyung's name male child after 6 6 days, and female after 5. So ever since that incident, this grandfather Shanu, he had received a certain sort of a boon from the tiger. So we call it the tiger spirit, or Kızı, that's what we say. Kızı is tiger, me is spirit. So he possessed that tiger spirit, and slowly he, along with the other generations, his generation, they inherited the spirit of this tiger spirit. So the beauty about this story is that not just a story, but there are also accounts where people with this kind of spirit are able to identify medicinal plants even in the jungles. They're able to cure the sick. People usually don't believe these kind of stories now that it's very modern, but we talk about our shadows being caught in the jungle and you fall sick. There are stories when you travel to deep parts of the villages, you come across these kind of stories, because in those places they don't have medical stores, they don't have hospitals. So when they are sick, they bring these sick people to Kohima Dimapur, and even the doctors sometimes they don't know why they are sick. They don't get the right sickness also. But when you go to these kind of people who possess those kind of spirits, they can easily know like why you're sick, and just a small chant from their mouth, just a small word of prayer from their mouth can cure you, something like that. So this sort of spirit, the clan started possessing this kind of spirit through that tiger story, and this story is one of my favorite among the entire book. I have a lot of stories, but I think this story is a little close to my heart because people usually associate us with like, why do you call yourself tigers? But I think stories like this that connect us to the word tiger actually. Okay. So yes, this is personally one of my favorite among the so many other stories.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. Truly, you have justified Imchen the tiger, that there's a meaning behind it. So thank you so much for clearing that out. And moving on, are there any writers or poets or authors that you connect with deeply as a writer?
My love for writing, it sparked in my third semester when we were studying Naga literature back then. Sadly, the students now, they don't study much of Naga literature, but when we were studying in my third semester, we studied entirely Naga literature, and we studied more of female writers actually. I even questioned my professor once, like, ma'am, why are we studying so much about women? Why are there no male writers? And she replied back saying that men are more interested in the politics. That's what she said. So I grew up reading Ma'am Esther Inquiri's writings, the Temselao, Nini Lungalang. So I cannot say 1, 2, but I love their writings. Esther Inquiri, Nini Lungalang, Mona Lisa, and Mem Tumselao. I'm also currently burying myself in one of Tumsela's book, Ausenla's story. I just started the novel. So these are some of the writers I really look up, and to me they are the torchbearers of Naga literature. And I'm just following the footsteps, the legacy that they have paved way for us young writers. So these are some of my favorite Naga writers, yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think Ma'am Esther Inquiri, Ma'am Temselao, these are some of the people that have truly made a remarkable contributions, especially in the literature of Nagaland. Alright, so what is your writing process like? Do you have any writing ritual or must-have when you sit down to write?
Usually when I write poetry, when I initially started writing, I would sit down with a pen and a paper, and I'll just go on scribbling until I get the perfect verse. My room would be filled with so much of crumpled paper, something like that. That's how I started. Now, when I want to write, I just lie down, grab my phone and just start typing. So I don't have a writing ritual, to be honest. I write when I feel like writing. And I usually don't feel like writing. It's sometimes when I feel like writing, especially when the data connection is poor, or sometimes when I'm just lying down, just lost in my overthinking, lost in my thoughts. That is when I usually write. I don't particularly have a writing ritual, and my writing process is not fixed, constant to something, but I just write when I feel like writing. So yeah, I think that's my answer.
So Mr. Runshito Lims, you have authored 3 books, your current one being The Ancestral Voices. So what are your plans for the future? Do you have any upcoming projects or anything exciting that's on the way?
I plan to write so many books. I mean, I have so much in store in my WPS office, to be honest. Okay. But a good friend of mine, Dr. Theye, we call her Mekhela Mama, she suggested why not I work on bilingual works like Imchen and English. And I was so intrigued when she said that, because we don't have that, to be honest. And as a Imchen, for us, literature is just taking the baby footsteps. The book that I published, the Ancestral Voices, this is also one of Imchen literature, but I think this is just the beginning. I'm not trying to compare our community with other communities, but we're just taking baby steps right now. So having a bilingual book would be like cherry on top. So I plan to work on some bilingual work, like maybe drama, because I have a collection of dramas to be published. So maybe I'll work on that. I'll try to make it into bilingual. I'll try translating it into Imchen and English at the same time. So I'm looking forward to those works. I also have a novel in store. I mean, I have been working on this novel since college days. All my college mates, I mean, they are the characters in my novel. And whenever we meet, whenever we talk about my work, they always ask me this question: when are you publishing that book? So I plan to work on that also. So hopefully I will get time to think about this. Yeah, hopefully I'll work on this book.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. We'll be waiting for that. So what words of encouragement or advice would you like to share with budding or aspiring writers, especially in Nagaland?
This advice, I've been advising this everywhere I go, especially when I address young writers or young authors or aspiring writers in Nagaland. First thing first, and this is the most important thing, do not compare your writings with anyone, because what you write is special. Even Shakespeare cannot write the way you write, and you cannot write what Shakespeare writes. So you are special. Your writings are special. I mean, you and I don't wear the same shoe size. You wear 3, example, I wear 6. If our shoe size are different, why not our writing style? So what you write is different. What you write is special. So work on your writing style. Do not copy some other writing styles. Just try to be original. Try to be you. Try to work on yourself. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes, but with those mistakes comes learning. So you learn along the way. So just accept the way you write. Just focus on the way you write. Polish your writing skills, and I'm sure life will take you places. That is one. And to all the aspiring writers in Nagaland, please don't be money-minded. A very good writer like I look up to has quoted beautifully that writers are usually poor. So don't be money-minded. It's the passion that drives you crazy. So just let your passion flow. Just let your passion take you places. Money will come along the way. I think those are the advices that I would give to the young, budding, aspiring writers in Nagaland.
Okay, that's truly encouraging. I'm sure your words will inspire the budding and aspiring writers in Nagaland. And finally, before we close, please leave a message for our listeners who are tuned in right now.
Sure. To all the listeners tuning in right now, please kindle the art of listening, because it's very important that we listen. It's only when we listen we'll be able to share, talk about our community, talk about our diversity, talk about our culture. We are very rich when it comes to our cultures, our traditions, our stories. But what's the point if you are not able to share this with the world? I tell this to my students every day in the class whenever I get the chance to, that you guys are going to grow up to be very boring grandparents. That's what I say, because these students, this generation is growing to become very boring grandparents. If your grandchildren come up to you, Granny, Grandpa, please narrate some stories. What are you going to tell them about PUBG, ML? What stories do you have for your grandchildren? So it's very important that we kindle the art of listening. It is only when you listen you'll be able to retain all those stories with yourself, and you'll be able to share. And to all those listeners who are tuning in right now, my message is, please don't just listen. You should also research. You should also rewrite and retell.
Thank you so much for sharing that heartfelt message. And with that, we come to the end of today's conversation, one that has been really meaningful and quietly inspiring. Mr. Runshito Lims, thank you for sharing a part of your journey with us and for giving us a glimpse into the heart behind the ancestral voices. We truly wish you all the very best in your future endeavors, and we look forward to seeing your work continue to grow and reach even more people.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, if today's conversation stayed with you even a little, maybe it's time to pick up a book, revisit your own stories, or even start writing one. Until next time, keep reading, keep dreaming, and most importantly, keep the stories alive. This is your host, Vedulu Medeo, signing off.
Please like and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for the latest contents. Also, follow us on all our social media handles.